Preston Guy will be around. TigerBait.com joins us on Fridays, does so now to talk a little bit of recruiting. Preston, how are we doing?
Are you the only one in the building today because you took every other Friday off? Or are you out? Do you only have 20 Fridays a year they give you?
No, I just try. I mean, we're not supposed to take any time off during football. It's not like a mandate, but it's just a strong recommendation.
Right.
So when you've got some chances to take some long weekends, you take one here or there, and you just happen to bear the brunt of that at times. But I appreciate you showing up every Friday. Is anybody – well, they can't the dead period is being enforced now. LSU's gone through its huge month of visiting and official visit weekends. Are you a little surprised at the lack of commitments that have come from these weekend visits?
Yeah, I am. I'm a little surprised. I guess I'm also a little surprised that they have swung and missed on every quarterback that they've gone for, including Bryson Beaver, who they offered at the last minute and committed to Oregon, which you have to question the thought process of a kid named Beaver committing to Oregon. That just seems like a sin. So I'm not sure I want that guy on my program anyways. But, a little surprised. But, kids are – frankly, they're paired with agents now, and they are thinking things through a little more slowly. I think that, this is just one of the transitions of this NIL era as it becomes more and more organized every year. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more patterns like, hey, let's wait for the summer circuit to end, or let's wait until, and then let's line up all of our offers and make a decision accordingly. I think that has a lot to do with it, but they have a really strong core to this class. I wouldn't freak out quite yet, just because you haven't landed anything yet. They did get a good. They probably had 40 official visits in the last 3 weeks, but nothing popped yet. But it'll happen. We're just stay tuned for the next 40, 50 days. There'll be some pop.
I want to talk quarterbacks, and we'll do that in a second, but you brought up a good point, and I started thinking Major League Baseball, and there was a time about 5 years ago where all the superstars were waiting until late February and into March, into spring training before they were signing these mega deals, and that's when the market got set, and then everybody else had to file in immediately after spring training when those deals used to get done in December, like the winter meetings, and finally the baseball got together and we got to stop doing this. You need to make some decisions before we get started. Do you think that the football players are waiting a little bit like those baseball players used to set the market?
Yeah, I think there is, other than the early commit guys who really just know what they want and want to get locked in so they can focus long-term out. There's really two big periods of commitments, and that's going to be at the end of summer, right before their football season, because these guys want to lock in for their senior season and don't want to, be talking to coaches here and there. And, of course, during football season, it heats up a bit as you get to visit during football games and have strong emotional reactions to all that. And then signing day in December. So it's really end of summer and that signing day. And a lot of this is also, keep in mind, we're not all that far off removed from the December signing day just becoming a thing. So the culture surrounding that, remember the first year was kind of all right, half the guys here, half the guys in February. Still, no one signs in February anymore. Right. February signing day is only for a handful of guys holding out for whatever reason. I think Dominic McKinley was probably the last February signing LSU had. And if you remember, that was in large part due to Jimbo Fisher getting fired at Texas A&M, where he was committed for a long time.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think that we'll see how the calendar shakes out, but I'm with you. I think things will start to happen. I wrote a column about LSU missing on some quarterbacks and what that may mean, not for this year because they're fine. After Christmas of this year, what does that look like? Yeah. How big a deal is it that they're not landing these high school kids, and this is the second year in a row?
Oh, it's an interesting question because 10 years ago that would have been a catastrophe.
Yep.
An unmitigated disaster. However, there's so many rules that I've just had in my recruiting evaluations I've had to kind of relook at with this portal period window. Landing Michael Van Buren changes your quarterback room dramatically because you have an established backup who's young and has eligibility. Years ago, you weren't pulling guys like that, and if you did, they'd have to sit and wait a year. So to say you might go 2 straight classes without signing a quarterback, that just seems like a terminable offense 10 years ago. Now, okay, well, what's the difference really, say, if you bring in a highly touted guy who just took a redshirt year somewhere else, and you bring him in with 4 years to play versus a kid out of high school. Not all that much different, but you do need to make sure when you're having misses at the high school level, supplement with the portal. So they either have to, and look, Hunt, I'm kind of looking at the writing on the wall, and this is highly contingent based on how Colin Hurley and how Michael Van Buren develop as quarterbacks. Do they have faith in one of those two guys to be your starter after Nussmeier graduates? The writing is on the wall. If those guys don't develop, they very well may go bring in a high-dollar veteran, signal caller. Think like Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow, those type transfers, to come in and be a one-and-done type guy just to hold the reins until you get an Elijah Hayes. One of those three highly touted 2027 guys that I would be shocked if you don't bring in one or more of them in 2027. And I also have a question in the back of my mind. Of course, I've asked all three kids about it, and I haven't heard anything yet. But does one of those talented guys in 2027 be one of them reclassify? Because we've seen a lot more and more kids getting on that trend as well. So that would fix a lot of problems. If say, Elijah Haven were a 26 guy instead of a 27 guy, that would feel really good for LSU.
And so this is all hypothetical, and I think everyone that's listening realizes that we're completely dealing with hypotheticals because we don't know. But, what if Nussmeier runs out of his eligibility and you go get this high-profile guy next winter that you're talking about, and Colin Hurley and Michael Van Buren go, okay, well, then we're out. Well, then you have one, and that's the thing that you just don't have any depth, and I don't know how easy it is to build that without high school kids who are okay with sitting. That was kind of my point. They're the only ones I feel like you can feel comfortable know that it'll sit for a year.
Well, and look, let's also make note of this. Those two are very young quarterbacks still. Okay?
Right.
Just because you bring in a one-year guy doesn't mean your career is over. Hopefully they can do what they did with Garrett Nussmeier when they brought in Jaden Daniels and said, look, we're going to bring in Jaden. He's going to be here a year or two. Just be patient. Stick around. Now, Garrett Nussmeier is probably an anomaly that he stayed, but, look at him now. He's college football's leading returner passer, and, he's got all the hype and a lot of Heisman talk. I believe he's second in the Heisman odds. So they can use these things to their benefit to help persuade players, and that's what you have to do. And trust me, I've talked a little bit with coaches privately behind the scenes. Retention is a massive part of their agenda. They're doing and operating their ways differently than they've ever operated, simply because they got to do what they do to keep these players on roster, because these kids are on Twitter just like me and you, and they're having panics and wanting to, go see if the grass is greener all the time. Well, they're trying to do things to make sure it doesn't seem greener. So, yes, you really want to keep those kids on board. But as was proven last year in the transfer portal, you can get a guy to come to your school in the portal who's not transferring to be a starter, a younger guy who's like, well, let me just go check out LSU. Maybe I can earn my role. So let's say they both do transfer out, which I don't think they should both transfer out if you bring in a freshman guy, because you still have an opportunity for a year after that. But if you do, just go back to the portal. Bring in three quarterbacks in 1 year, I guess, is the doomsday scenario.
Yeah, and I kind of felt like Van Buren was a little bit of a unicorn in that way, that he was okay to transfer to sit, but I realize that there are probably more of those than I imagine, just because I'm only paying to one school, hyper-focused in terms of this time of year. All right, let's talk kind of the next couple of weeks, because we'll be out for the holiday next week. Like, do you expect that during a dead period of no in-person contact that LSU could get a couple commitments, or do we have to probably wait until camp?
I think we're probably going to have to wait. There was Emmanuel Ruffin who was set to announce on the 4th. Had a good feeling about him. He has announced that he's going to delay his decision. So I would just buckle in tight. There might be a surprise or two, but buckle in tight. I think we're going to be a couple weeks away.
He's Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. Good enough to give us a little football every single Friday. Does so on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, appreciate it. Have a good 4th, and we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
All right, see you next week.
Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.